Welcome to the Only Thing podcast, where we cut to the noise and we get laser focused on what truly matters: faith, family, fitness, and finance. I'm your host, Ryan Hughes. After 20 plus years in banking and helping people build financial freedom, I've learned success isn't about doing everything. It's about finding that one thing that truly builds legacy. Each week, athletes, entrepreneurs, experts join us to show how focus creates freedom. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Only Thing podcast. I'm excited today to be joined by just a special friend and colleague, Candace Horne. She's Coach Candace, and just has so many things in her life, so many hats, working with people and investing, passive invest, active investing. So we're excited to jump in. We've had the opportunity to have conversations offline, and just really looking forward to getting out there and letting her share with the world what she does and how she influences people and influences their pocketbooks and build legacy. So welcome to the show, Candace.
Thanks so much, Ryan. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little about Coach Candace and, kind of how that came about. And, I know about it, but I'd just love to hear a little backstory on that. So.
Yeah, of course. Give the short version. People are usually kind of surprised by my story. To me, it's just the path. But 10 years ago, I was 37 and getting divorced and really had no idea what was next for me in the future. Anyone who's been in that place, I'd been a stay-at-home mom. I hadn't worked. I'd gone back to school, gone back to work, and there was a lot of uncertainty and it's a very unsettling feeling not knowing what's next in your life and not having financial stability and so forth. I went back to school. I got my bachelor's and master's degree and became a licensed therapist. And that is really the underlying foundation that really makes me unique as a coach today, because I have that background in relationships, communication, behavior, and those sorts of things. But I knew that therapy was not going to give me the future that I wanted, which was time freedom and flexibility. And my kids were getting ready to leave the house. And I thought, what am I going to do with my future? I had already been a passive investor in real estate across commercial, and I didn't realize how much I learned about real estate and investing by being a passive investor, but I wanted to learn how to be an active investor. And you and I met through the investing world, right? We have a lot of mutual friends in the note investing space. And so I learned how to become a mortgage note investor, which I absolutely love. And this is like year 4 of my entrepreneur journey. And so I scaled down my therapy business to build my real estate investing business. And then last year I got certified as a high performance coach, because I really love that one-on-one with people. And I wanted to be able to offer that at a higher level. And so taking my therapy background and I'm an active investor and entrepreneur myself with the high performance coaching model. So that's what Coach Candace is all about today. I work with purpose-driven professionals who want their whole life to feel good and have success in all areas of their life, just not their financial and business, who want more than just the achievement. So that's what I help people do.
That's great. It's fun. You touched on a couple of things that, to me, we all struggle with, right? Time. We want time back. That's, anyone says, I don't have time. I don't have enough time. That's always, there never is enough time. And that came up, and, we were doing this little Bible, study for my son. And that came up, we don't have time to do this. So there's not enough time in the world. And that seems to be always the challenge, and how you want to get your time back. So I thought that was, I love you say that, is, how do I do that? And then, coaching, we all know about coaching as kids, right? We all play, sports, or most of us tried it, maybe we don't go very long, but we all try to play, and we have coaches. But then as we go through life, why do we stop having coaches? And that's something, to me, I think we need them. We rely on them so much, but then we don't go and engage with you, and as we're entrepreneurs, as we're, business, we're going through our career. So how is that time, when you're able to get time back, how does that, really influence and help, with what you're doing in life? I'd just love to hear a little bit more about what has that done for you? What has that done for you? The time, getting that time back.
Yeah. One thing that's different about my life now than several years ago, when we're talking about time, is when you're doing what you want, and everybody doesn't want the life that I want, which is being able to work. I can work from anywhere there's Wi-Fi with my investing and my coaching, but that's not everybody's goal, and that's fine. But what it does for you when you feel some power and control in your life, even when you're in a season of hustle, you're doing things that you care about and that are building what you want. And then that what you're spending your time on feels good. So even when your time is full, it feels good because it's what you want to be doing. And like, I don't have to set an alarm in the morning. I'm not really a sleep in person, but that if you've been in a season of life, or if you have that W-2 job and you are on somebody else's schedule, like that really grinds you down. And so even little things like that make such a difference in life. And that has nothing to do with money.
That's true. Getting up for yourself versus for someone else, and that's a big deal. I mean, and that's, I don't know how. One thing I know you have the One Life Weekly. That's your, that's explain a little bit about One Life Weekly, because that's something we haven't touched on yet. So that's something I know you talk about and
yeah. So my website is One Life Weekly, and it's the name of my newsletter. And the way that I came up with it is, the way I see it is this. I believe that we have one life on this earth. And if you have enough life experience or you reach a certain age, you can't avoid knowing that our time is going to end. We don't want to think about it. We're planning for it financially and all that. We never really want to acknowledge it, but it's true. And we reach a time in life. There's that great book, Die with Zero. And the point that I love in that book is that we have seasons in our life. You have seasons of better health. If you want to be climbing mountains and doing epic physical adventures, you're probably not saving that for when you're 70. You got to do that earlier. If you want to see every main art museum in the world, that can maybe come later in life if those are both goals for you. And I just believe that the important things don't change. And I believe that we can't fit everything that's important to us in a day. But when I think about like the 90-day, the 3-year, the 5-year, which I certainly plan for, I get lost in the goals. And so for me, I think it's totally possible to live a life you're proud of and have every important part of your life like touched on and move forward in a week period. And so to me, we can live our fulfilled life a week at a time. That's where the name came from.
You have so much wisdom, and that's, just saying that, and how you like the art, art museum, that makes a lot of sense. You're not going to climb mountains when you're, well, maybe you are. I mean, the people do it when they're 80 or 90, but it's going to be a little more difficult possibly. So, usually I know I'm dealing with that with my folks. They're probably not climbing mountains right now and with their situations they're in. So it's that's something people need to take. And these young, the athletes and the NIL and how they're going through life, and these, the name and image and likeness, and how they're going through life is, it's okay to live, 1 week at a time. It's okay to live in the moment, right? And then as you go through, and then obviously have, you can change that in the future. So that's important. It's like, how do you build? I know legacy is a big part of what you focus on. Like that's, how do you that's a big part of your work, is how do you build that legacy? How does that matter to you in terms of building legacy? How do you do that?
And to follow up on what we were just talking about, I work with so many people, and you hear this, your colleagues, your friends, when you're wherever. We're professionals, we're working professionals, and we're working really hard. So when I say I work with purpose-driven professionals, it's because we're working, my circles, my clients, my friends, we're working for something more. We're working to improve our financial situation. We're working to give back. We have ideas. We like to help others. We want to leave a legacy of our knowledge and share what we've learned with, especially the younger generation. I hear that a lot. Too often, though, people are like, I'll have more time for my family when. I'll have time to learn tennis when I cross this finish line. And so to me, the important things don't change. If you care about your health, like, you better be giving a time to it now, or it will catch up to you, right? That's how we get burnout. If your family is important to you, this is part of your legacy. We can set up trust, and we do. Your listeners and our friends, we're working for big money because we want big legacy for our generational wealth, right? Big topic of conversation and to give back. I'm sure we both have friends who have foundations or doing really big things in the world. Whether that's time, money, the more money you have, the more time you can give. Everybody doesn't choose to do that, but that's certainly something that financial stability gives you. And so from the legacy piece, our friend Dan Zatofsky has people do this. He says, think about it's your funeral and what do you want people to say about you? And yes, legacy is about what we build and what we carry, and part of that is financial, but what else is it? What example are you to your kids? What are they going to say about you? How do I make people feel? I don't know. Who did I help? Like, to me, that's my legacy. And we're both very involved parents. I know you love your kids. We talk about our kids a lot. My kids are in their 20s, as are most of yours. And I have people ask me, do you want your kids to be entrepreneurs? Your kids doing real estate investing? And I talk to them about what I'm doing, of course, but they each are on their own path. Will they want to do what I do? Who knows? At this point, they don't. But I like to say that the best I can do for my kids is try to give them how to think. I'm not trying to tell them what to think or what to do in their lives, but I do really try to say, try to think about it this way. And this is how I think about it. And this is how I think it's important to think. So I think that's a really big part of my legacy that I care about is how do we think about things? That's important to me.
It's true. No, I do. I would always say, like, people would say, what are you doing this for? And it's like, I'm doing it for my kids. That is my legacy. And now I still, like, they are my legacy. I want them to be, and maybe not my legacy, but an extension of me, right? Like, I want to have, now I'm kind of like, all right, I need to refocus that mindset of what is my legacy? Like, where am I going to leave? What are people going to say at my funeral? Like, now I'm kind of like, not that I want to, well, we're all going to, it's inevitable, right? We're all going to die, but it's something I do. And I love what you said. It's about not telling them what to think, but, for them to, how they think and what, so we want to encourage them to think for themselves and expand on that. And that's so important. We forget as adults that we stop, questioning things, right? As kids, they ask a lot of questions, and then you don't want it to stop when they get older. Like, once your kids stop asking you questions or challenging you, then they might forget why they're doing this. And that came up yesterday. We were talking about that a little bit, and it's you don't want that. You want them to ask questions and challenge why. What because they ask what is it? The statistic, you probably know it, but it's when they're in age, I don't know, second grade to fourth, they ask, I don't know, it's insane amount of questions every day at school. But that's good because they're curious. They want to know, they want to challenge it. And then as we get older, we stop to kind of, we slow down on those challenges. We shouldn't.
I love that you say that, because that's really where growth comes from, right? And I think that's where we can get stagnant, all of us, when we just kind of get stuck in what we're doing. And going back to a couple of something you said a few minutes ago, you're really big in sports world, right? You played sports, you coach sports, you work with athletes. Sometimes I have people say, well, I don't know why I would need a coach because I'm doing okay. And I love, I heard something about Michael Jordan, like any elite athlete, they probably have 10 coaches, right? And the highest performers in the world, the CEOs, like the best performing, the most successful, the happiest, household names, they have a lot of coaches. They have a lot of people on their team guiding them, supporting them, pointing things out. I know you experienced that too, but I think we grow up and forget what a benefit it makes to have other people on our team with us.
The biggest mistake I made was not having coaches when I was in my younger career and going throughout it. I started to have mentors, which is different than a coach. Like, mentors you definitely need. I think it's so important to have those mentors throughout your life, and you identify it. And hopefully I'm blessed to have those mentors that I was able to, for 20 plus years, I was able to reach out to some of the CEOs of previous companies when I was nobody. I was just a little peon. And now I'm lucky enough to have that relationship still 20 years later with the CEO of that company. And I think it's important to have that. And now I have, as a coach, I'm able to, talk to, I have a podcast coach. Like even doing a podcast, I wouldn't have been here without them pushing, right. And encouraging to just do it, just jump in and do it. And, and obviously they give feedback, but everything we do, we should have that, life coaches, family, financial coaches. I mean, there's so many things that you touched on, health, right? My whole thing is like faith, family, fitness, finance, right? However you want to word it, we need that throughout our lives. Because if you don't have the faith, you gotta have some kind of faith. If you don't have, obviously if you don't have the fitness, you can't take care of yourself. And so your family, obviously you want to do something for your family. There's so many aspects in our lives. And, but you have to have coaches for that, whether it's you're going to, school or you're going to religion, whatever you're doing, they're all in some form coaches. It's just, I agree. Sometimes we forget it's okay to have that. We need to learn throughout it. And just like you go and get your bachelor's and master's, that's amazing. I find that, that's inspires me to just the fact that you're able to do that. And how do you make that, like, that's gotta be scary.
It was incredibly hard, right? I had kids. When you go from being a full-time parent to working and going to school and trying to parent and going through the disaster of divorce, like it was incredibly hard. It was scary. I did not know what was ahead. But we never know what's ahead, even when we think we do, right? We just one foot in front of the other, do what's important and show up the best we can.
And you probably, that strength that you showed, I'm sure your kids, I'm sure they noticed that, right? I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm sure it wasn't easy, but they definitely probably made them stronger as well. Seeing their mom going through that transition and just taking on all that, everything, responsibility, the finances, I don't know if I could, I started out in a career, right? I don't know if I could have done that, and had to, if I lost my, my spouse or just, divorce, I don't know if I would have, I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you.
So kudos. Yeah, that definitely kudos to you. That's amazing. So, and that, well, I don't know. I just, there's one thing I would love to, the only thing is if there was one thing that, someone trying to do that in their life, because we all go through that, like even, that they say midlife crisis or whatever, or your situation, I'm more in a midlife crisis, or was. And, so it's going from, being a W-2 employee, transitioning, you want that dream, or you still have the goal in life. Is how do you, if there's one thing that you say you could recommend, or you could give some advice to someone going through, what you went through, like, making that transition, or just the fact that you're done with that W-2, someone else controlling your time, right? How do you, what's the advice you give, that one thing that maybe here's what to do? I don't know, if there is one thing.
Yeah. One thing. You're speaking to a woman, Ryan. It's a woman with ADHD. It's hard to say one thing. If I had to say, we have good conversations.
You can come back. You can come back to that if you want. Yeah.
I guess there are lots of one things, but one thing that comes to mind is I really believe that legacy comes from leading yourself first. And whatever impact you want to have on other people, whatever influence you want to have on other people, one, it comes from a relationship, whether we're talking about kids, employees, vendors, anybody you're working with, you're going to get better results if you have a better relationship at whatever level that is. But people have respect for you when they see that you're, taking your own advice, that you're putting time into yourself. If you told your kids or the kids that you coach or anybody and said, hey, you should really be doing these things. And they're like, well, you're not doing those things.
So it doesn't work.
Where would that?
Do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't. That's not the right thing.
Where's the foundation? And it could be the best advice you could absolutely say, here is your exact plan for exactly what you want. But if you're not living that life, if I'm not living that life too, anyway, that's what I just try to remind myself. Legacy comes from leading yourself first. You need to put the time. You can't abandon yourself. You'll end up burned out, resentful. If you're showing up for others, it needs to be about them. You need to be smart. I think it's really important to be intentional and like, what's the important step now? Because as people with big ideas and, the visionary mindset, or the athletes you work with, we're thinking down the road. We know what down the road looks like. We know we're on that path, or we know we want to get on that path. But on the way, like, if we're focusing on what we need at that place, we're not going to be able to take the next step. So we need to see that big vision and carry it, right? That's what carries us through the hard times. But we need to be focused on, like, what's the next step, and what's the next step? And is this on the path, or is this a little side tent off the path? It's like, come over to the circus, which is a distraction. No, we need to, like, stay on the path if we're really committed to our goals and our vision.
That's so true. And I think they always say you don't see the forest through the trees, or the tree through the forest. I feel that saying, but it's, you don't see, sometimes we get so caught up in where we're going and we forget what's right in front of us. And is it really worth destroying possibly what's there to get to where you're going? But who did you hurt along the way? And that's, sure. Sometimes we all get lost in that. And I love you said lead yourself, lead with, what did you say? You said
legacy comes from leading yourself first.
Leading yourself. I love that, because I always say to my kids, you can't love anyone else until you love yourself.
100%.
So it's, and it's hard to, people say, well, love yourself, but you have to truly love yourself before you can, give love to someone else. So it took me a long time to come around to that. So that's great. Well, if there's anything, I could speak. We could talk for days, and we talk about the kids and life, and there's so many things that we could talk about. And I definitely want people to come on and how do people find they're gonna look up Coach Candace. I know One Life Weekly. How do they?
The website One Life Weekly has links to all of my social media, LinkedIn, my newsletter, my coaching offers. I work with clients one-on-one 12 weeks at a time. And I had a client, half of my clients are 7-figure earners in entrepreneur and investor space. And it was really interesting because I had a client say, this would be actually really helpful if you could do something with me and my husband, because they're business partners. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. Let me think about it. I want to make sure I can provide value and that I have a plan for what the coaching would be. And so I also created a coaching program for couples who are partners in business and in life, because that's can be a really empowering, but also challenging overlap. And so that's been a newer thing that I'm doing that I haven't heard anybody else doing it. So I really love my one-on-one work, but people want to stay in touch. My newsletter is probably the best way. And I love meeting people.
One Life Weekly. Okay. Yeah. So that's good. You got a website. Is there a website out there as well?
That's the website, onelifeweekly.com. It's got everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. No, we've been talking. I need to get on there with my wife. She's like, I can't work with you, and so I guess that's where we need to come to Coach Candace.
There you go.
So well, this is fantastic. I hope I mentioned to you before. I don't know. I know you're going to try to put together some kind of I don't know if it's a course but I think there's a lot of these with the new NIL stuff and all this ever changing with these athletes, and it's not just athletes, but just with the influencers. I know there's a lot of these struggles with the kids coming up. They're young and it's getting younger and younger So I know you were going to maybe possibly try to put something together. I asked you to try to, maybe at some point, have that type of opportunity for families and kind of deal with it's stressful enough with college and academics and housing and everything else, you're trying to figure out. Now you got to throw in, additional stresses with, branding. And so I think that's maybe at some point you'll have that as well. Right.
Yeah. You and I are going to continue that conversation to see what would be most needed, because as a therapist, my background is child and adolescent therapy and marriage therapy. And that's how I started coaching was support for parents and for spouses. And so my start in coaching was parenting and relationship coaching. So, and I've got my third kid is graduating college. So I have the personal and professional experience. Let's put something together.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, congratulations on that. I know I got a couple more graduating as well. So that's exciting for both of us. So
yeah.
All right. Well, definitely. I'm so thankful to have you on the Only Thing podcast. And if there's anything you want to leave with, before we head out for the audience, is there any piece of advice you'd want to leave behind, or?
Relationships are everything.
Love it.
all of my business, investing, and everything else is relationship. You and I met, we have a relationship, and it was a random conversation, and that's what's moved me forward in every area. And I think if you're a person who shows up with good intent and knows what you want and care about other people, that's really what pulls you forward in life. And I know you've experienced that as well. So thanks so much for having me on.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for coming on the Only Thing podcast. So everyone, if please give us a follow and like us, share us if you like what you see, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Only Thing podcast. If you got something out of today's conversation, do me a favor, hit subscribe, share this with someone you care about, drop a quick review. Remember, faith, family, fitness, and finance. That's the foundation of lasting legacy. Keep stacking your wins, stay focused on your one thing, and I'll catch you on the next episode.